Why stroke follows a different path than diabetes. Number 1658, May 27, 2026. Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation. Category Diabetes, Stroke. Preface for readers: eat more protein and vegetables. Eat less red meat and processed foods. Reduce portions if overweight. Eating a little less will not hurt you, but overeating for you certainly will. Exercise daily and walk at least 7,000 to 8,000 steps. Drink 85 to 100 ounces to 0.5 to 3.0 liters of water daily. Sleep 6 to 7 hours each night. Manage stress and avoid unnecessary conflicts. Protect your health because wealth, fame, and power have little value without life itself. Introduction. The attached figure at the end of this article reveals an interesting observation. My diabetes trajectory and my stroke trajectory do not behave the same way between 2016 and 2025. My TSIT to D declined from 86.71 to 5.81, representing approximately a 93% reduction. This dramatic improvement reflected years of reduced food portions, lower body weight, improved glucose control, and better lifestyle discipline. However, when TSIT to D was compared with TSI stroke, the two trajectories showed only a moderate relationship. The correlation coefficient was 0. 430,673 R equals 43%, and the coefficient of determination was 0.185 for 7919%. These values indicate that diabetes-related behavior explains only part of stroke behavior. This observation became even more interesting after I introduced two additional models. TSI2 was constructed mainly from blood pressure variables, PP equals SBP VBP, representing vascular elasticity, and SBP, representing stroking force. TSI3B combined blood pressure and glucose influences on overall vascular health. Both models showed trajectory patterns much closer to TSI stroke than to TSIT to D. These findings suggest that diabetes provides a foundational influence on stroke risk, but diabetes alone cannot explain stroke behavior. Additional mechanisms from blood pressure must also be involved. The purpose of this study is to compare three trajectories, TSIT to D. A diabetes-oriented model primarily influenced by glucose metabolism. TSI2, a stroke-oriented model derived mainly from blood pressure variables including SBP and pulse pressure PP equals SBP dBP, and TSI3B, a combined stroke model incorporating both glucose and blood pressure influences. The objective is to examine why stroke appears to follow a different trajectory pattern from cardiovascular disease, CVD, and chronic kidney disease, CKD. The diabetes trajectory. The annual average TSIT to D values were 2016, 86.712017, 81.702018, 80.432019, 70 to 0.392020, 56.8 to 2021, 40 for 0.512022, 41.582023, 30 for 0.592024, 27.672025, 5.81. The overall reduction was approximately 93%. The shape of this curve closely matches my actual diabetes history. During this 10 years period, I reduced food portions, lost body weight, improved glucose values, and maintained better lifestyle habits. The curve resembles a large reservoir gradually draining after years of excess accumulation through three primary indicators. Food quantity functions as the incoming flow, body weight functions as the stored volume, glucose functions as the visible water level indicator. For many years, excess food increased body weight. Increased body weight worsened insulin resistance. Insulin resistance elevated glucose and accelerated diabetes progression. When food portions decreased, the process gradually reversed. The reservoir began draining. Body weight declined. Insulin sensitivity improved. Glucose improved. The resulting TSIT to D trajectory moved steadily downward. The direction remained clear, although minor fluctuations occurred. The dominant trend was continuous improvement. This behavior is typical of a long-term metabolic process. Comparison between TSIT to D and TSI stroke. The stroke trajectory behaved differently. Instead of showing a smooth decline, TSI stroke rose, fell, accelerated, stabilized, and changed direction multiple times. The curve displayed considerably more dynamic behavior than TSIT to D. The correlation coefficient between TSIT to D and TSI stroke was R equals 0.430673, 43%. The coefficient of determination was r squared equals 0.185 for 19%. This means that only about 19% of the paired variation can be explained through the linear relationship between these two curves. The implication is important. If diabetes were the dominant driver of stroke, the two trajectories would be expected to move together much more closely. Instead, the relatively modest correlation suggests that stroke contains governing factors that are not captured by the diabetes model alone. This finding is consistent with both clinical observations and my own personal experience. My diabetes improved substantially, my body weight improved, my glucose improved. My TSI-T2D reached its lowest level during the study period. Nevertheless, I still suffered a pontine hemorrhagic stroke. This observation indicates that successful diabetes control alone does not eliminate stroke risk. Blood pressure models and stroke behavior. To investigate stroke further, I developed two additional models. TSI-2 was primarily based on two blood pressure variables, PP and SBP. TSI-3B combined blood pressure and glucose influences. The annual average TSI-2 values were 2021. 96.3 for 2022, 97.7 to 2023, 105.19 2024, 108.01 2025, 108.1 for 2026, 94.83. The annual average TSI-3B values were 2021, 90.20 2022, 87.93 2023, 94.44 for 2024, 98.28 2025, 97.7 to 2026, 95.10. When these two curves were compared, TSI-2 versus TSI-stroke TSI-3B, several similarities became apparent. One, the major turning points from low to high occurred at similar locations, particularly between 2022 and 2023. To the upward movement from 2023 through 2025 was also similar, maintaining a plateau-like pattern. 3. The ending year of this plateau region, 2025, was identical in both models and corresponded to the year of the stroke event, indicated by a red circle. For the subsequent decline from 2025 to 2026 during stroke recovery was also similar. 5. Most importantly, the overall trajectory shapes were much more similar to TSI stroke correlation 82% and determination 67% than to the diabetes trajectory correlation 43% and determination 19%. These observations suggest that stroke may be influenced more strongly by vascular mechanics than by diabetes alone. Diabetes contributes to vessel damage over many years through inflammation, glycation, endothelial dysfunction, and calcification. However, the final pathway leading to stroke appears to involve additional vascular factors, which include systolic blood pressure (SBP), pulse pressure (PP), vascular aging, arterial stiffness, structural vessel vulnerability, transient blood pressure spikes, such as acute SBP elevations, may play an important role together. These variables may play a larger role in determining stroke behavior than glucose alone. The importance of pulse pressure. One of the most important observations in my recent studies involves pulse pressure, PP equals SBP dBP. Over the last decade, my body weight and glucose levels improved while my food portions also decreased. However, my pulse pressure gradually increased. Pulse pressure is not simply another blood pressure measurement. It reflects arterial stiffness and vascular aging. Arteries lose elasticity. Pulse pressure tends to rise even when average blood pressure remains relatively stable. From a mechanical engineering perspective, systolic blood pressure represents continuous loading. Acute hypertension represents a sudden impact, while pulse pressure reflects structural stiffness. An aging bridge may tolerate normal average traffic loads for many years. However, repeated loading on a progressively weakened structure eventually increases risk of failure or collapse. Arteries behave similarly. Diabetes may gradually weaken the structure. Vascular aging may reduce elasticity. Pulse pressure may reflect the resulting stiffness. Blood pressure spikes may provide the final loading event. This combination may help explain why stroke behavior differs from diabetes behavior. Why stroke differs from CVD and CKD. The differences between stroke, cardiovascular disease (CVD), and chronic kidney disease (CKD) can be viewed through a simple engineering framework. The heart functions primarily as a pump, the kidney functions primarily as a filter and regulator. The brain functions as an information processing system supplied by a complex vascular network, similar to a computer. All three organs can be damaged by diabetes. However, their dominant failure mechanisms are not identical. The heart and kidney are strongly influenced by long-term metabolic loading. Consequently, the trajectories often resemble diabetes-related behavior. The brain is different. A stroke occurs within a vascular system that supplies energy to an extremely complex information processing organ. Vascular mechanics, structural vessel integrity, blood pressure dynamics, and aging may all interact simultaneously. This complexity may explain why stroke trajectories differ from those of CVD and CKD. Conclusion: this study compared three trajectories: TSI-D to D diabetes, TSI to stroke model from blood pressure, and TSI-3B stroke model from both glucose and blood pressure. CT to D declined markedly from 2016 to 2025, reflecting major improvements in metabolic health. However, TSI stroke followed a substantially different trajectory. The correlation between TSI-D to D and TSI stroke was only moderate 43%. While TSI-2 and TSI-3B showed much stronger similarity to stroke behavior 82%. These findings suggest that diabetes alone cannot fully explain stroke behavior. Blood pressure dynamics, pulse pressure, arterial stiffness, vascular aging, and structural vessel vulnerability appear to play major additional roles. From a physics and engineering perspective, diabetes may prepare the vascular environment, but vascular loading and blood pressure dynamics may deliver the final triggering event. Please note that TSI means triggering sensitivity index. The novelty of this study is not the general clinical observation itself, but the use of longitudinal TSI trajectory analysis to quantitatively compare how diabetes, stroke, CVD, and CKD evolve over time. The results suggest that stroke follows a different long-term dynamic pathway from other diabetes-dominated diseases. Disclaimer: I write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthy lives. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.